to all our brothers and sisters world over, wherever you are. We extend you a very warm welcome, hearty welcome, right from the bottom of our heart. It's such a pleasure to have such a wonderful audience across the globe, in different continents, in different time zones, in different conditions, in different arena. But as a family, it's a Vasudev Kutumbakam. We all are one family, global family. And that's the way we got to take this journey forward. Right from 25th of March, ladies and gentlemen, our chamber, International Chamber for Service Industry, is in your service because there are two different areas when we take into consideration: doctors, nurses, and paramedical people. The great warriors, because they are trying and helping every individual the best possible way as far as the health services are concerned. At the same time, when we talk about this particular pandemic, coronavirus, and the UNESCO gives the alarming situation and statistics, 1.86 billion children are at present away from schools, colleges, universities, polytechnics, ITIs, whatsoever we talk across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, the second brigade and the second warriors are teachers, educators, trainers, professors, and vice chancellors, directors, and on the top of everybody, the technocrats. Those are trying to give the seamless connectivity, whatsoever could be made possible. This morning, this afternoon, this evening, whatsoever time zone you are in, whatsoever part of the world you are, first of all, we pray to Almighty that your health should be fine. You should be keeping good health, taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, your friends, your neighbors, your community, your society, your civilization, because again and again, I believe Vasudev Kutumbakam. That's what we have to talk about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what is the objective? Why are we meeting this morning, this afternoon, this evening? This is the 285th webinar. And from 25th of March, right during the lockdown when it was declared, we took a pledge from the chamber. We'll try and reach out everybody in the different continents and in the different countries. Like now, when I talk about this particular program, people from Canada, United States, Latin America, Europe, Central Asia, South Asia, ASEAN, Mauritius, Seychelles, Africa, Middle East, all the way down to South Korea, Taiwan, and people are still awake. Can you believe it? It's almost 33 minutes past 7 o'clock, and I just got a call half an hour before. Doc, we are awake. We want to listen to your program. Sapporo, Hokkaido, Kobe, Kyoto, Fukuoka, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. I would say, you name a place and people are there in the Japan also watching this particular program. I just spoke to two of my professors in Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark. I'm so grateful. You're such a wonderful people. And I personally feel if God has kept me alive and I'm talking to all of you today, it's all because of the good wishes and the blessings of all our brothers and sisters. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we took a pledge from the chamber that our chamber will try and reach out everybody world over, wherever you are. We will try and help you to empower your education ecosystem, whatever we can do from our side, whether in education imparting, research, skills, technology, entrepreneurship, anything. It's a global confluence of intellectuals. I'm so grateful. This evening, we have been joined by Dr. Gopala Ganesh. He is the professor of marketing, University of North Texas from the United States. We extend him a very hearty and a very warm welcome. We have been joined by Dr. Sanjay Mehta, professor of marketing at Sam Houston University, United States. We extend him a very warm welcome to join us this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Vivek Shankar Natarajan, Professor of Marketing, at the Lamar University, Texas. He's also joining us today. It's a golden triangle. It's a tribhuvan. And little while before, in a very humorous way, Dr. Gopala Ganesh ji used one word, and that was Tridev. So that Tridev was in a different context. We take it in a very positive way that, ladies and gentlemen, they are going to share their vision, their expertise, and whatever God has given them, they will share with all of us. I'm also thankful to Professor Tejendra Sharma ji, the founder president, Haryana Commerce and Management Association, who is basically a person who put across this entire network, and from there the journey started, and we all are moving ahead. So, ladies and gentlemen, hearty welcome to all our brothers and sisters, all our teachers, educators, natives, NRIs, Indian diaspora, people those are directly or indirectly anywhere in the ecosystem of education. And today's program is non-resident Indians' contribution towards the new education policy, National Education Policy 2020, which got the daylight on 29th of July from India's most vibrant and dynamic Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji. So we will discuss in a little while. Today is 1st of November. Today is a birthday of Haryana as well. Let me share. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, our chamber, International Chamber for Service Industry, which is in the existence since 1994, I wish to share with all of you that from the Indian Army, when I moved to the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, and I was taking care of a couple of verticals, human resource development, education, and with that, we were talking about cinematic tourism, medical tourism. One area which touched my soul, my heart, my spirit, and that was a lot of people were coming from abroad, coming to India. They used to come to Ministry of Tourism, asking sometimes certain things, and they always told what we need is there should be some platform where all the non-resident Indians and Indian diaspora which has gone abroad, they should be put together, their expertise to be put together, and whatever they have achieved, that has to be basically utilized for the growth of humanity, the best possible way. And as far as India is concerned, now we had Takshila, we had Nalanda, we had Vikramshila. So like that, all these people, those have gone abroad, and those are related to directly, indirectly, anywhere in the education ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of cerebrum and lot of expertise they are carrying. It's up to us in a very humble way in India to take this journey forward and to bring their expertise to the India's education ecosystem. So, since 1994-93, I left the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, and when I was moving out from there, immediately took into the pledge, let's take care of the non-resident Indians. And we started with Punjabi Parvasi Divas. And it was a small group where from the journey started. And then in 2003, then the visionary, the dynamic, creative, innovative, and I would say, such a statesman. If you meet him once, you get his aura. And that was late Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji. And in 2003, when he saw for 8 to 10 minutes the presentation, what we people are doing since 1994, he gave a warm cup of coffee and tea to everybody. And he says, this is very good effort. What you people are doing, keep doing this Punjabi Parvasi Divas. It's very nice. What comes to my mind, let us see, because a lot of other people have also gone abroad, and why not to take them also on board? And he immediately gave the idea. There was small get together presentation, small group, and he told, let's have Bharatiya Parvasi Divas. The idea was so vibrant and creative. And then he told, when do you celebrate this Punjabi Parvasi Divas? And we started conveying, sir, it is on 13th of January, because that's a Lohri festival which we celebrate. He says, very good. He took 1 minute pause and immediately he conveyed, "Oh, 13th of January, Lodi, that's very nice. We will have Bharatiya Parvasi Divas on 9th of January." Then immediately everybody started looking left, right. What exactly is he talking about? Ladies and gentlemen, 9th of January, Mahatma Gandhi ji returned from South Africa to India, and he mentioned, who could be a better NRI than Mahatma Gandhi ji? And that was the birth and that was the beginning of Bharatiya Parvasi Divas. And ladies and gentlemen, thereafter, vibrant Karnataka, vibrant Telangana, vibrant Andhra Pradesh, vibrant Tamil Nadu, vibrant Kerala, vibrant Rajasthan, and vibrant Gujarat, everything vibrant. And that vibration came because all these brothers and sisters, when they came from abroad to India, they brought so much of expertise, they brought so much of wisdom, knowledge, and so much of networking from world over. And slowly and gradually, India started recognizing and appreciating these people can contribute a lot to the development of India. Today, when you talk about FDI, FII, couple of other things what you talk about. So, ladies and gentlemen, during this pandemic, when we started the journey in month of March, we took a pledge, only 3 words, and I personally feel till my last breath, I'm going to stick to these 3 words only, and they are so precious to me. They have given a new dimension. They have given a new vision because so many conferences, so many conventions, so many trade fairs, so many deliberations, whether schools, colleges, universities, polytechnics, ITIs, skills, competencies, whatsoever you talk about, there are 3 words onto which the entire education ecosystem can be empowered and can be taken ahead, and that is making education relevant. Because relevance education has to be seen in all times. That is something very important. So today we are proud of, there are more than 30 million non-resident Indians world over. They have gone to different countries. They have gone to different places. They're bringing so much of proud to India that these brothers and sisters, they are doing remarkable. So ladies and gentlemen, Vasudev Kutumbakam, our culture, our social norms, of course with that economic activities, but at the same time, personal growth of every individual in terms of becoming a good human being is very important. And that should be the motto. We got to believe in values and we got to take on our behaviors, our attitudes, and a couple of other things. We will talk as we unveil the whole program. Heartiest congratulations to Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, and the Honorable Education Minister of India, Dr. Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank ji. Ladies and gentlemen, new education policy at 4 p.m., 29th of July 2020, 1968 Kothari Commission policy, 1986 next policy, 1992 minor changes in the policy, and now after 34 years, well deserved, well awaited, long awaited, the new education policy 2020, which has come into India. Now, this is something which we are going to unveil. The Honorable Prime Minister of India, his vision is we got to make India self-reliant, Atmanirbhar Bharat. And how that is going to be, which way that is going to be, India is thinking, India is growing, India is becoming self-reliant. And then he has given intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a lot of expertise of our brothers and sisters. Those are in the vertical of education empowerment. We will have them on board because making education accessible and relevant for all should be the motto. Because at this point of time during Corona, because sometime I realized new education policy was coming and everything whatsoever has become digital now, like a tsunami which came and it has become in 6 months. It could have taken next 10 years to get into this particular mode. But now, whatsoever happens, in the crisis, there are opportunities also. Remember 2008 financial crisis. Uber came, Ola came, Airbnb came. So many new ventures had come at that point of time. And I'm so, so happy that all our teachers, in spite of all the limitations, they tried their level best to reach out everybody. We know there are certain hurdles, difficulties, obstacles, problems, because seamless connectivity has to reach out everybody. Everybody has to have equal access and they got to have the relevance of education. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the book which is coming from our chamber, the sixth edition. Five editions have come already, and I wish to share with our brothers and sisters globally, those are joining this particular program. In 1994, we were before time. That time people were not prepared and they used to ask, what is finishing school? What exactly are you talking about? We were 10 to 12 years before time because that time skills, skill gaps, competencies, nobody was taking into consideration. They were just thinking education to be imparted and that is the way it has to just move forward. So ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about skills gaps and when we talk about global finishing school, we wish to share in a very humble way India's first service industry finishing school was set up by our chamber in a very polite way, very humble way, with lots of acumen and help from our non-resident Indians. And we are proud of it that this is the services sector. And this is the way we set up, excuse me, etiquettes, manners, gesture, body language, articulation, critical thinking, analytical thinking, logical thinking, interpersonal relationship, communication skills, and at the same time, how basically to become a confident person. Everything we had taken over here for services sector, and not only for youth, for teachers empowerment also. Now, the impact of technology on education and innovating learning approaches, very important. Our chamber is deeply, deeply committed, and we take two areas. One is music should be the integral part of our entire education system, irrespective whatsoever is to be taught. And we will prove it to you that look, with music, mathematics can be taught, management can be taught, creativity can be taught. And there's a lady, I'll give you a live example, with whom we are doing lots of programs. She's from Assam, Dr. Sunita Bhuiya. She plays violin. Her mother used to play violin, and she is the one who teaches leadership and management activities through violin. She plays for 5 minutes, gets into a different arena, and thereafter she talks with you. And second is, you cannot stop technology. Technology has to be adopted. We got to go with the technology. Gamification, we have taken up with about 159 corporate houses. Now we have written to them, why not to have positive games? Why not to have creative games? Stop destructive games. Start working on to it, because gamification can become 100% part of the entire education ecosystem if the technology moves with the gamification in a positive way. At present, we are in your service for 7 days. And when we talk about 7 days, it's not Monday to Friday, it's Monday to Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days, youth and teacher empowerment program. Friday, water management and water crisis services. Saturday, Swami Vivekanand, Chicago, 11th of September, 1893. Sisters and brothers of the universe, and everybody rising on their chairs and talking over there. Saturday evening, if your health is not fine, you can never do justice with the universe. You can never be mentally happy. If you want to be physically and mentally happy, you've got to be taking care of your health. And when you are physically strong, there's a gentleman to whom I keep meeting, the Michael Jordan coach. He's in United States. His name is Tim Grover. You read his book, you will be zapped. He says people spend 100% time in the gym on their body, If they spend only 10% of their time on their mind, the world will be a better place. Try and go through on the YouTube, like you see Sugata Mitra, and you go through my friend Sir Ken Robinson, late now, we just passed away. Sunday morning, we opened the Hollywood, we opened the Universal Studio, and when the gates opened up, there is a Woodbury University, Burbank, California, right in front over there, almost 60 miles away from Los Angeles Airport. And Professor Satinder Deman comes live with us. He's our past president from the chamber. And ladies and gentlemen, this management professor, he talks to all of us on Sunday, and where he talks at 9:30 in the morning, that is, what is the relevance of Srimad Bhagavad Gita and 10 principal Upanishad in education system. Because the new education policy which is coming in India, it is taking care of now where the ancient values to be incorporated in the education system. And thereafter, ladies and gentlemen, at 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time on Sunday, we take you all the way to ASEAN, 650 million population. Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Brunei. And these people, they join us. Our present president is from Thailand, and the future president who is taking over from 13th of January is from Malaysia. And we talk about India, ASEAN, and our focus is northeast part of India, because the Honorable Prime Minister of India calls it Ashtalakshmi. Those 8 beautiful states over there, their art, their craft, their culture, their cuisine, their dances, their music, their wonderful souls, tribal people on this planet. When you meet them, when you greet them, when you treat them, they are beautiful people. I've got so much of respect and so much of love for them. And I have prayed, because I know I will not get moksha. Next birth, I'm going to be born. All my brothers and sisters, those are listening in ASEAN, next birth, I'll be born in your northeastern states. And then comes last program, that is, I just finished. Can you imagine? We started in the morning today. 9:30, we had the first program, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. 3 o'clock, we had India ASEAN program. And 5 to 6:40, we had the program, our chairman, that is chairman for micro, small and medium enterprise, Mr. Rabindranath Ji, who was earlier CMD with the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise, NSIC. He's chairing that. And we want education is incomplete unless you take up either a job or you start up, you become entrepreneur. No child should be left unemployed. No child. First to 15th century, when you talk, in India, nobody was unemployed. Nobody was looking forward to a job. So ladies and gentlemen, couple of things. So one more thing I just want to share quickly. Down below, if you see, there is a motivational talk in Hindi every day. 12:30, I address the nation, India, and about 400,000 boys and girls and teachers, they join every day. And strategy is, युवा पीढ़ी क्या चाहती है? What does youth want? Have we ever tried to understand? It is no more teaching centric, it's learning centric. That's what we got to understand. And technology plays very important. So youth empowerment is our first goal and our first objective. And youth empowerment is possible only when you have teachers empowerment. So teacher empowerment is very, very important. We all got to take that agenda forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Ken Robinson, we lost last month. What a great man. Whenever we met him, whenever we discussed with him, and his beautiful aura, and he always told what is the purpose of education. And knowledge is a collective contribution. It's not a monologue, it's a conversation. Wonderful person. And similar way, Sugata Mitra. Do we require supervision all the time for the kids? Or is there a evolution of learning environment? Can students teach themselves? Can they learn at their own? And he did a wonderful experiment, fitting those 2 computers in a wall without any teacher, camera registering everything. After 1 month, remarkable results. So ladies and gentlemen, how to make education relevant? What is the purpose of education? Why do we go to school? Why do we go to college? Why do we go to university? Why do we acquire a particular skill? Education is to remove ignorance and to provide the desired knowledge and competencies to every educator and youth. And ultimately, we need a global peace because do we understand how much money are we spending on arms and armaments? If that money is utilized for education, for human development, the world will be altogether different. During this pandemic, last 6 months, we have carried out the entire study and the research from the world over. The golden triangle is not Delhi, Agra, Jaipur. The golden triangle now is your basic food, your health, and earn and learn. Because these three things, and world has to be sustainable development. And B2B is no more business to business. It is back to basics of life, which we all have to understand. So, ladies and gentlemen, our recommendation, because today a lot of people are joining this program for the first time. That's why I have gone into detail because a lot of new people are joining across the globe, and particularly in India, people want to listen to our distinguished guest today. But before that, I wanted to give you the complete ground so that we understand why are we having this webinar series and what kind of a support do we need from all of you. Each one of you is very important. Kindly come on the YouTube. I don't want any Zoom linkages to be sent to anybody. Just come on the YouTube, post your name, post your suggestion, post your comment, post your recommendation, post your views, whatever you want. Let's make a global fraternity together and one voice how to make world a better place. And I always, whenever I listen to, because when I teach abroad and whatever I get the money, I become a humble student thereafter to learn something over there. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to share with all of you from our chamber, what are the recommendations to Indian corporate? Come forward. Education is the sector to focus to make India self-reliant. Government of India should encourage investment in education sector. Special economic zones, what we call SEZ, it should be now termed as special education zones. And that should be where some of the colleges and universities and institutions and schools, those are in a cluster, help out each other, join hands with each other, support each other. And 2% of the CSR, which corporate are supposed to spend in India in a particular activity, CSR activity, spend for next 5 years exclusively in the education sector. We will be able to achieve the dream project of Honorable Prime Minister of India, that 6% of the GDP to be spent in education sector. That would be possible. All of us, we got to get together. 500 top corporate of India should contribute to education sector empowerment for the next 5 years. Government of India to focus on seamless connectivity. This is the role of the government. Government should provide seamless connectivity. Irrespective, you are in the city, you are in the metro, you are in rural area, you are in the interiors, you are in the far-flung areas. Every child has got a right to get seamless connectivity and education. And there are many children who do not have basic equipment or apparatus onto which. And then at the same time, I would like to make a humble appeal. Today, 7 to 8 top people from the television industry also are joining this program. When they told me what is so special this evening you're going to tell, I'm going to make a request to all of you for your TRPs and for your news and the negative news which we keep bombarding from time to time and sensational we try to make it. Why not every television channel takes a pledge that 1 hour out of 24 hours, you will have your channel available for education empowerment? Why can't we do it? No new construction of buildings. Rather, there should be a global confluence of education, expertise, networking, and NRIs valuable inputs to empower the entire education ecosystem. भारत को पुनः विश्व गुरु बनना है, ये मुझे आपको हिंदी में ही बताना पड़ेगा ये हमको समझना पड़ेगा। और भारत पुनः विश्व गुरु अपने आप नहीं बन पाएगा। It will become विश्व गुरु only when we will empower our education ecosystem. How it will become global study destination. All of us, we have to put in lots of efforts, lots of efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last slide. And I strongly believe it's not mine. It's Napoleon Hill. I read his book time and again. Early in the morning, they say first 20 minutes when you get up, because I sleep very early and I get up very, very early. And whatever human mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Talk to yourself early in the morning. Talk to stars. And such a interesting thing. These are not mine. This is from the Napoleon Hill. And what I get from there, anything is possible on this planet when you take a pledge. Let's come together. Let's make education relevant. It's a global confluence of educators, motivators, technocrats, counselors, wellness experts, corporate, government administrators, and decision makers. Here is the web portal. If you wish to join here as a panelist or send any suggestion, both the mobile numbers are also listed here, and our email is also given to you over here. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming and बहुत बहुत नमस्कारन, बहुत बहुत वणकम, बहुत बहुत pranam. We have been joined all the way from Texas, Dr. Gopala Ganesh, Professor of Marketing, University of North Texas, United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Dr. Gopala Ganesh, he is known as GG. Ganesh is a university distinct teaching professor at the University of North Texas, Texas in the Denton, Texas, USA. He has taught at the college level in the USA since 1980 and UNT since 1983. Professor Ganesh is a graduate of the Indian Institute of Technology-Madras at Chennai, the Indian Institute of Management at Ahmedabad, and has a doctoral degree in the business administration from the University of Houston. Professor Ganesh is one of the most experienced professors in online teaching. Wow, that's great. With continuous involvement in that area since 2003. It's a boon and it's a pleasure to have you, because 17 years expertise of yours online teaching we will bring to India. Wow, we are privileged. He has won a national competitive award from the American Marketing Association for innovative excellence in marketing education and numerous recognitions from other associations as well. He is a recipient of the Distinguished Educator Award by Federation of Business Disciplines and Association of Collegiate Marketing Educators. We extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Gopala Ganesh this morning from America and this evening from India. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by Professor Dr. Sanjay Mehta ji. He is a professor of marketing, Sam Houston University, USA. Professor Dr. Sanjay He has taught at the college level in the USA since 1990 and is a proud second generation academician. Dr. Professor Mehta ji, he is a graduate of the Angelo State University with undergraduate degree in mathematics and MBA, and has a master's degree in management science and a doctoral degree in business administration from the University of North Texas. Dr. Mehta is one of the most experienced professors in the area of service learning and community engagement, with continuous involvement in that area since more than a decade. He has won awards for research, teaching, and service excellence at Sam Houston State University and was awarded the Distinguished Educator Award by Federation of Business Discipline, Association of Collegiate Marketing Educators. A great pleasure to have him. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a sheer coincidence. In a brief little bit of interaction with him before we have come live on this program, he belongs to Hisar, and today is the birthday of Haryana. of Haryana, very prosperous people, very hardworking people. And when I talk about he is second generation, his father is a very, very distinguished and very honorable educator, author, visionary, educationist, and a legend, when we talk about education, fraternity, ecosystem of the universe. We are proud to have him this evening with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been joined by Dr. Vivek Shankar Natarajanji, Professor of Marketing, Lamar University, Texas, USA. Professor Dr. Vivek Shankar Natarajanji is a professor of marketing at Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas, USA. He holds his engineering in electrical engineering from Bangalore University, now Bangalore, an MBA in international business from Punjab University, and that should be PANJAB, and PhD in marketing at University of Texas, that is Arlington. We extend him a very hearty welcome. Professor Dr. Natarajan is one of the most experienced professor in area of online education. Wow, that is again a very, very nice information. And role of technology in higher education with continuous involvement in that area for about a decade. He was awarded the Distinguished Educator Award by Federation of Business Disciplines and Association of Collegiate Marketing Educators in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, very warm welcome to Dr. Vivek Shankar Natarajanji. And ladies and gentlemen, today's discussion, of course, this I will take on later, but I wish to share with all of you, we will have the best global education practices and a couple of other things we will take into consideration. We have also been joined by, I will call him as my younger brother, Professor Tejinder ji. Although by title we are Sharmas, we are brothers from the education fraternity, and he is the founder president of Haryana Commerce and Management Association, very distinguished professor from a Kurukshetra University, and he's doing remarkable work. And today's this particular webinar is the kind courtesy of Professor Tejinder Sharma ji. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, we extend a very warm welcome, very hearty welcome to all of you. And I would request now Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajanji to take on proceedings. And I would request my self-proclaimed, because self-appointed, I will call him, my younger brother, Professor Tejinder, to finally propose vote of thanks, because he is having a couple of programs going on back to back. He has Australia webinar, then he had gone to UK webinar, and now he is in USA webinar. I think he is floating around and moving around. And today is Haryana Day also. With these words, I request Professor Vivek Shankar Natarajanji. I'm sorry I took a lot of time, but I wanted to give the total ground, the clarity, because the people, those have joined from world over, they do not know what is this program, why this program, what do we want to achieve from this program, and what is the objective of this program. Please go ahead.
Well, warm good morning to my friends from the US, and good evening. And of course, you mentioned the State Formation Day of Haryana. This is also the Kannada Rajyotsava. So these are two states from which I have my degrees. So I am very proud. Vande Mataram to all of my fellow Indians, Jai Hind. So with that, just a brief idea. I mean, Professor Ganesh, Professor Mehta, and myself, as you saw, we are all from marketing. And coincidentally, we were all back-to-back recipients of the Educator Award. So I guess we have collectively done something good or something bad, but we all are in the same thing. So as I was reflecting on this panel, this is a panchayat, as I said. Even last time it was a panchayat, this time it's a panchayat. And जो पंचायत का जो फैसला होता है, वो Supreme Court भी नहीं change कर सकता. So panchayats are so influential. So this will be a Gyan panchayat, if you will. And so what is common to this panel? So all of us are essentially marketing or services researchers, which may not be always the case, so which is very interesting. But the theme of this panel is pedagogy. And this group that I always visit every year. It's called the Association of Collegiate Marketing Educators, Federation of Business Disciplines. That's where I started as a student, and now I went on all the way to become the president of the organizations. And so that's where I meet Sanjay and Professor Ganesh. So that's where that's kind of our like a Kumbh Mela every year, if you will. So every year, these are the legends who used to teach me how to become a better teacher. Whether I have become one or not, I don't know. That's up. The jury is still not there. But these are the people whom I have always worshipped as the people who are innovators in the pedagogy. So it's very pleasure to have and all of them on the same panel. It's a privilege to be with them. So again, as I said, this panel is 5. So you can look at it as 3 Texans and 2 Punjabis. When you have a Texas Punjabi cocktail, you can never go wrong. Or you can look at it as 3 Punjabis and 2 Madrasis. So even there it is parathas and idlis. So I guess it's going to be a spicy mix. So without much ado, I would request on my distinguished guru, my distinguished colleague, my distinguished mentor, Professor Ganesh, to talk about his experience. And and I've told him when professors don't need an agenda, we can talk a lot. So, but again, main idea is he's passionate about changing India through online education. He has spent did a whole sabbatical in India on that in Madras. So I want him to reflect on that, but also talk about his life experiences. So it's a very fascinating thing. As I said, he's a IIT, IIM product. And so when those people speak, only wisdom will come. So we should just be all attention. And then, of course, then we will follow it up with Sanjay. So it'll be a nice contrast. So let's get the idli vada first, and then we'll go to the parathas after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek. And I greet everybody who is watching and has joined this group. I'm very happy to share some thoughts. I've been a student, formal student, for 24 years of my life. And I have been a teacher for 40 years now. Based on the experience of all those years, I would like to make a few summary statements. First, a bad teacher can make a mess of even the easiest of subject matters. Second, a great teacher can make a very difficult topic, like the highest levels of calculus, easy to understand. Third, any student will do well in their chosen area of studies if they have genuine aptitude for it. My fourth observation is, unless you make the foundations very strong, you have a very difficult job of educating an individual. When I say foundation, I probably am talking about the first 6 classes, what you call standard 6. The elementary education is extremely important. I see that is a problem here, even in the United States. The basic number skills are lacking in many college students, and I struggle with that every day that I go teach at the university. And one of my unique contributions to American higher education, a course called Marketing Metrics, which addresses developing and strengthening number skills for marketing students so that they understand how to calculate, interpret, and make decisions based on marketing metrics, which are basically measures of performance in the marketing area, organizational performance. That course resulted from a desire to strengthen these basic abilities which should have been addressed at the elementary school level, but many students came through somehow without a strong basis. Okay. Now, having said that, I have looked at the abbreviated abstract of the new education policy, and I'm very happy with it because I find it to be liberating and creating a more liberal education environment where there will be plenty of choices and students can change their mind and pursue something else. This is a personal experience. I did get into an IIT. I pursued the undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering, and I came out with good academic performance. But I can very honestly tell you that I have no aptitude for engineering at all. I was good in physics, chemistry, and mathematics at the 12th standard level. And I did quite well in the JEE and got into an IIT. But I don't have any real aptitude for engineering. I probably spent a lot of time in IIT just studying because I was trying to study something I was not really interested in. And it was not possible for me to change anything. At the end of the first year, I wanted to switch. But how do you switch? You will lose a whole year. You have to start all over again in something. And there are practical as well as social issues at that time, family pressures, so on and so forth. It was very difficult for me to do anything different once I had gotten into that. I would like students in India, especially at the college level, to have plenty of choice. Not only at the college level, even at the basic schooling, I want them to have an enriching experience. First, take care of the basics. They all need to know read, write, and speak languages. And in a polyglot country like India, it's always a good idea for students to be at least able to speak multiple languages. They all need to do basic arithmetic because that is a life skill. To be able to recognize a good deal and to stay away from a bad deal, you need basic number sense, and that is drilled in the first 6 classes, and that needs to be, the variance in the quality of that needs to be reduced. Not only in India, even in the United States, where it is a problem. Now, based on my experience, I think the internet has a great potential to take the super teacher and simply magnify their access to 1 million students. A teacher cannot teach in a physical classroom 1 million, it's impossible. Whereas the online education platform has the potential to take truly great teachers and make their teaching and their unique skills available to millions of students. I've been talking about this to friends here. I don't know what the situation is in India. Everybody in the US has online access, but everybody's access is not the same. I realize that right now because of the pandemic. I've been teaching only online since middle of March. And right now in the fall semester, I'm teaching an undergraduate class, that metrics class that I spoke about, that marketing numbers class, to about 207 students. I'm also teaching a graduate MBA class in market research for about 35 students. Now, those 207 students, they all have online or internet access, but they all don't have the same high speed, high quality internet access, which permits them to watch the video rich content without interruptions and to have a really smooth experience. Plus, of course, they all have various other personal issues and so on and so forth. To take full advantage of online education, it is a very good idea for any large country. It is true for the United States. It is also true for India to have basic access to high-speed internet, basically free to every citizen and resident of the country. So that is something that I advocate here whenever I have an opportunity. In fact, I have spoken to some friends that they should make basic internet, whether it is 5G or whatever, the state-of-the-art internet access, that signal should be uniformly strong all over the United States, so all over India. So how do you do that? I say that internet access is not only a matter of entertainment, things like that. It's a matter of basic right. So make it a part of, for example, the defense budget. Okay, spend some of the defense budget in providing basic access to the internet, free. There's also another reason why that would make sense. Basically, the online marketplace is a market. You want a lot of people to come into the market. After they come in, they will do their own shopping and they will try to buy something. They will buy a lot of it, a little bit of it, none of it. That's all their individual preferences, financial circumstances, and so on and so forth. The ability to come into the online marketplace should basically be free for everybody. And I have no problem when they buy something, there's a small surcharge or a tax on that, which will eventually pay for creating and sustaining this infrastructure. So that is another thing that I think will work very well in large countries, the US, certainly in India with its huge population. There is no way on earth India is going to have the resources. I'm told that you need 1,500 new universities, comprehensive universities, to take care of the huge load of young people coming through the pipeline. There is no way you're going to find that kind of money to establish 1,500 new universities. And online education has got to be part of the solution. And it has to be done at the federal level and make that internet infrastructure accessible to every Indian. That can only be done at the federal level. Let me stop with these remarks and hand over to my colleagues and then chip in with comments and things like that. Okay, thank you.
Is it?
Could I request Professor Mehta to please take on, please?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Thank you for having us here this morning. I'm going to talk about a pedagogy that is relatively new, I would say. It's been around since the 1960s. This particular pedagogy goes by many names, and some people like to call it service learning. Some people like to call it community engagement. Some people like to call it experiential learning. And it goes by many names. Let me give you a historical background. I mean, you may be familiar with the words of Benjamin Franklin, who is considered pretty much the father of America. His words are, "Tell me and I'll forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I learn." And when we talk about student-centric learning learning-centric education, we need to remember Benjamin Franklin's words. A lot of education, at least at the earlier grade level in India, and that was my personal experience, was a lot of rote memorization. And we used to memorize theorems, we used to memorize axioms, we used to memorize laws, and we used to regurgitate those during exams and did well by and large. But the challenge is, how relevant is that? You used the word, Dr. Sharma, relevant. And so one of the challenges that when I came to the States, I was concerned about is the applicability of education broadly. Now, there are multiple pedagogies out there that can make education more relevant. So let's take some examples. The case study method of teaching graduate business and business schools, which was popularized by Harvard, is somewhat a application activity-based pedagogy. Then you have things like simulations today with technology. You have you have basically internships, projects, working with for-profits and nonprofits and so on and so forth. These pedagogies have been around for a long time, but one that I am a strong believer on, let me give you a historical background. When I was a student at University of North Texas, Dr. Ganesh was practicing this, but it was not a formal pedagogy at that stage. He was helping small businesses, he was helping nonprofits in town, he was helping organizations on campus, and I was a student assistant for him. I was what they call a teaching assistant, where I used to help in the project. Over time, this has now become a formal pedagogy where you involve students into an actual integrated project with your class. And so now it is actually called experiential learning and community engagement. So let me briefly give you a small, what I would call my definition of community engagement. My definition of community engagement is very simple. It's a teaching method that combines community engagement with academic instruction. And so what we're talking about here is collaboration with a community partner. We're talking about reciprocity. We're talking about co-education between the community partner and the professor in class. We're talking about lifetime change and changes that occurs from the institutional, from the student's perspective. Now, to really have community engagement integrated into a curriculum, which is what I'm hoping that India will consider, you need a strong buy-in. You need a strong buy-in from the faculty. You need a strong buy-in from the administration. You need a strong buy-in from the students. They need to see the value of community engagement. And so the question is, how do you go about doing it? Well, one of the things that I would encourage, and one of the things we have done at our university, is we have institutionalized it, okay? We have made it part of our academic community. So what does that mean? Basically, before a student signs up for a course, next to the course, we tell that it's a community engagement class. And so a student can either opt in or opt out of the community engagement class if they don't want to work with the community. Now, usually what happens is if the class is a community-based class, there will be a very intense project along with the class itself. So the argument is that while the professor is instructing in class, he or she is also working with a community partner. Now, from a student's perspective, that's added work. Okay, but again, if you're trying to teach students the relevance of education, you have to complement lecturing with additional work on the side. And I think that's very critical. Otherwise, students will just simply memorize things and they won't see the value of education. And so now to do community engagement and experiential learning, again, whatever names you use, you have to have faculty buy-in because this requires additional time for the faculty. And so many faculty are reluctant to engage in community partnerships simply because they feel that they're not going to be rewarded for the extra effort that they're putting in working with community partners. So one of the things we had to do at our institution is create a modified reward structure that if you were involved in community engagement, you would be rewarded with extra merit pay or with extra grant money and so on and so forth. But the challenge most faculty face in today's world is that we are judged on what we call a three-legged stool, where we have a service component, we have a teaching component, and we have a research component that we are basically evaluated on. So one of the challenges that I had to face, and I had to convince people that if you're engaging in community work, it's still very much part of the three-legged stool, because you're now providing service not only to the institution and to your discipline, but now you're providing service to a community partner, to a local entity. And one of the advantages is that historically education institutions have been seen as these towers of disconnect between the town and what we call the gown. You know, universities are typically perceived as, you know, a ivory tower kind of environment that they don't understand what the real world feels like or real world really behaves. So bringing students closer to the town helps a lot in the process. And so I think that's why it's very important to engage. Now, there's a lot of academic research since the 1960s and 70s that have talked about community engagement as a viable pedagogy in academic institutions. Like I said, Benjamin Franklin's words are very much in line with that. But there's a well-known theory or a model called model of experiential learning. And that's the basic idea. The model of experiential learning was first written about in 1981 by a faculty named Kolb. And he basically said that in order to get students more engaged and more involved and more experienced, you need to have education and you need to integrate several things. So not only are you getting students involved in the community and giving them experiences and learning how to do what they're learning in class, but you also go back and reflect on what is learned. So let me take an example. You know, poverty is well known in almost every community. You find discrepancies, you find poor people all over the place. Well, when you provide a service to the poor, so let's say you go and feed the poor, you donate your personal, things that you don't need to the poor, you're providing a service. That service basically takes you to one level. But my argument with students is not about providing the service, but my argument is much bigger. Why does poverty even exist in the first place? Okay, so that's where the reflection part comes in. So when you work with the local community partners, you see poverty firsthand. And that's what I've historically been doing. I've been working with a lot of nonprofits. And so we're talking about battered women. We're talking about socioeconomic poverty. We're talking about working with local community gardens and so on and so forth. And then we try to look at the bigger picture, okay? The role of man in a community, the role of a human being in a community. So some of us who have been privileged and have had the opportunity to help others, we try to reflect. So one of the things I'd like to do with my students is I like them to maintain a journal of every interaction they have had with community partners, so that at the end of the semester, we can reflect back and see what really occurred and how it occurred. So I've been doing community engagement now for about 20 years. Let me just tell you what the academic literature and my personal experiences have been telling me. First, I realized that students learn more when they're doing community engagement classes. Second, they're able to see real world. A lot of education, if you have a typical traditional student who's going to class after class after class, they're really not seeing the benefit of that education. So by working with a community partner, what you're getting is real world experience. So for example, I teach marketing research, just like Dr. Ganesh. I teach marketing management at the MBA level. So I have created a community engagement marketing management course. So the process is very simple. I teach a concept in class. So let's say I teach something like SWOT analysis in class, which is basically identifying internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats. I will ask my students that week to go out, and of course, now I've already identified the community partner. I will ask them to go out and interview the community partner and do a SWOT analysis for that community partner, okay? Let's say I teach my class a competitive analysis in class. That week, the students will go out and look at the community partner and do a competitive analysis on that. So basically, we follow the marketing management process, and every week they turn in an assignment that is specifically to the community partner. And the whole advantage of that is they actually learn how the content of the courses are actually being applied in the real world. Now, again, as you work towards the new policy, and again, I'm hoping that you will consider, the Indian government will consider multiple pedagogies. And obviously, community engagement is just one pedagogy. Case study method may be another pedagogy. Internships may be another pedagogy. As institutions grow, I'm hoping that community engagement becomes part of this new education policy so that students come out with some work experience. Possibly what I've also experienced is I've had community engagement partners be so happy with the students that some of them have even been hired after they graduate. And so some of the community partners have been so elated with the project that they have actually donated money towards scholarships at our university. So again, there's a lot of what I call win-win-win in this pedagogy. And I'm hoping that it becomes a viable pedagogy as we move forward towards the new policy. Okay, and like I said, if there's any, I can talk about this because I've been doing this for over 2 decades now. And my pride and passion has been what we have done at our institution is we've created a Center for Community Engagement. So what we do is what community partners do is a local business or a local nonprofit comes to the community center, the center, and says, we need a project. What the center does is hooks up a class with the community partner based on the needs of the community partner. So sometimes a community partner may need a social media campaign. So we connect the community partner with the social media class. Sometimes they need a marketing plan. They'll connect it to my class. Sometimes they need, so again, we try to match partners with classrooms. And right now at my institution, we have over 200 classes a semester that are typically engaged with the community. And again, community can be much broad. It does not have to be just local. We go beyond our city and try to work with even entities, even internationally in many cases, depending on what they need. Okay. So Vivek, I will pass this over to you.
Okay. Well, first of all, my gratitude to Professor Ganesh and Professor Mehta for making some wonderful opening observations, but we are not done yet. I mean, this is kind of the second phase is going to be the more important and more, hopefully more interesting and engaging part of this seminar. So first of all, I'm going to do at least 3 or 4 passes for questions. So I'm going to ask a philosophical question because at the end of the day, the theme of these webinars, as from I understand, and remember, I am just a week old with Professor Gulshan ji, but so last week I was a speaker, but this week I've kind of become more of a kind of a co-organizer of chair. So I'm also learning, but the idea of these seminars are to empower education in India. And those of us who are students of services know that in service, the service provider and the service is inseparable. There is an inseparability issue. So if you're empowering educators, you have to empower educator. You have to empower education through empowering educators. So in that context, I just want all of us, especially Dr. Ganesh and then Dr. Mehta, both of us, I mean, all of us included, we have gone through portals of higher education in India. We have come to the US. And the new education policy is the 3rd version, 68, 86, 2020. What are the things you see? And also juxtapose it with your own experience of being gone through education in India and US. And I think in Sanjay, in your case, you also went through Singapore. Where do you see this policy taking India? Is it going to take us to the, how is it going to take us to the next level? So that's the first question. And then I'm going to come to some macro and micro questions in the second phase of questioning. So Professor Ganesh and Professor Mehta.
You have to unmute your mic. Unmute your mic.
Yeah.
Ha.
Yeah. I see it as liberating higher education, making it more flexible, allowing students to change their minds without catastrophic consequences, allowing them to discontinue their education for after a couple of years and going and doing something and then coming back and resuming. All these are very good aspects. But I also believe I would like to see a lot more emphasis on this basic education. I really think in India, what the voting age is 18. Is 18 the minimum age for voting in the elections? Okay. If an 18-year-old is old enough to exercise their franchise and elect their leaders and so on and so forth, my belief is that that person should not get public assistance for education or anything else with nothing in return. You follow me? Education money should be spent at the lower levels. 18 and beyond, whatever assistance you get from public sources, you have to repay it in some form. And that ties in with Sanjay's comments on community engagement. It is possible for business schools and schools of health, public health, medicine, so on and so forth, to easily initiate community engagement activities because there's a need already there. Not business is dominated by small businesses, not big corporations. Whether it is the US or India, that is true. The bulk of employment in the United States is from small businesses, not big Fortune 500 companies. And the small businesses cannot afford the services of a Boston Consulting or other such McKinsey or other such very expensive consultants. But many of them have small problems that need to be solved. The problem might be in the accounting area, in how to finance their business, marketing, social media, whatever it may be, optimizing their manufacturing facility, so on and so forth. And they can approach the local educational institution and get some very inexpensive, still high quality consulting type of thing. So these schools can easily create community engagements. How about places like IIT? For example, in my own case, when I went through IIT Madras, we had to do this NCC for the first 2 years. And I can be very honest, I just hated that experience. I was not built for the rigors of NCC, and I did not go to the camps. I got medical certificates and things like that and got out of it. But instead of NCC, if I had the option, there was no such option at that time. Right outside the IIT gate, you could actually walk to it from the hostel, was this huge slum called Velachery. Now, of course, Velachery is the hottest real estate in Madras. Very, very expensive place. At that time, it was a slum. And there are lots of young, poor kids there with no access to education. If they had, instead of NCC, if they had asked me to go there twice a week and teach basic arithmetic to those kids, I would have done it not 2 days, I would have done it 5 days. All that I needed was some kind of a structure to it so that when I go there, I'll be allowed to do what I came there for, and somebody at the institute will monitor these activities, so on and so forth. So I think some of that is already happening in India. Am I correct?
Professor, yeah, from what I know, there is NSS, but we'll come to NSS. That's in the second round of questions that I've got some specific questions about it. So National Service Scheme, and I'll come back to that. But
and one more point. I know that Switzerland, Singapore, and some other small countries, they all have this 2-year national service requirement after you complete the 12th standard. And only after that, you can come back to college and resume your studies. I have always wondered, why doesn't India go along those lines? India has so many problems that can be easily addressed with an army of very young 18, 19-year-olds. They can be assigned to all kinds of problems that are plaguing the country and the society. And they serve for a couple of years, they come back, and in return for that, the government can pay for their 50% of their college, or pay for the entire college if they work for 2 years in designated areas, because they'll be motivated, they'll be less selfish at that age. They want to do something, and you can unleash this army on all kinds of social problems, including basic literacy, sanitation, and so on and so forth. So something like that, it will be something very difficult to get past the legislatures, because you are talking about not allowing people to go to college immediately after 12th standard. But something like that will be very good, I feel. Okay, carry on.
Sanjay?
I agree with everything that Dr. Ganesh said. And again, one of the things you talked about, this whole notion about national service scheme. There's a lot of confusion between community engagement and volunteerism. A lot of kids in India, including and the US, do a lot of volunteer activity. My kids did a lot of volunteer activity in the hospital. They did a lot of other things. But the difference between this pedagogy versus volunteerism is the structure part, where you structure the class in such a way that the volunteer activity is inbuilt. Okay, so you're basically teaching a content. So let's say, give you an example, let's say a marketing research class, where you teach the marketing research, you teach students how to design a questionnaire, and then they have to design that questionnaire for the community partner. You teach them how to collect, you teach them sampling. Then they go out and sample from the community. You teach them data entry. They enter the data that they've collected create an electronic file or a matrix. You then show them analysis for that same data. And then ultimately they make the presentation to the community partner. So I'm a big proponent of this pedagogy personally. And whether you do it, in every class, or what we have done very interestingly is we are thinking of giving a certificate if a student does 6 classes in their undergraduate that are community-based. So it adds value to their transcripts, to their degrees. And so when an employer sees that, now let me give you a bigger picture. What we have done after this, we have followed some of these students over the last decade. What we have also found that this community engagement that we do in classrooms has been transformational in their lives. I mean, both US and India are some of the largest democracies in the world. Democracy requires participation, involvement. And so when these kids go out and live in their own communities, they may leave the state, they may leave the country, wherever they go, they're still involved in their communities. And we find that those students who were doing community engagement classes, we are finding are doing a lot more in their communities after they graduate than those that are not. So there's a much bigger, like Dr. Ganesh was saying, having these students work 2 years. These community engagement classes are having transformational thought process changes in these kids, because at 18, they're still relatively vulnerable. And so they look at the world very differently when they go out. And that's why I think it's a viable and a good pedagogy for universities for the next 2 decades.
Okay, I'm coming to some micro questions where the rubber meets the road, if you will. So the first one is about online education, and I think I can request both of you to chip in, but start with Professor Ganesh. How do you empower the teachers? And again, this is a corollary to the question that I created. What are some structural issues with the question with online education, and how do you mitigate them, and what are limits to online education? Because remember, sometimes it becomes this, online is also seen as a silver bullet, But I guess as academics, we all remember there are boundary conditions to any solution. So what are some boundary conditions? Where do you recommend online? Where do you not recommend online? And what makes a good online educator? How do you empower the online educator? That's one. That's a question related to online education. Same thing, I'm getting some micro questions relative to community engagement. How do you empower the educators to become good? How do you make it part of their pedagogy? What are some metrics? How do you grade student performance? And what are some solutions? What are things that are work? So I guess those are the practical things. So I think the philosophical questions, everybody is getting it in a macro sense, but the operational issues. So these are the next set of questions. Over to you, Professor Ganesh.
Any professor is more likely to be an expert in the content or knowledge area that they teach in. They are unlikely to be an expert on how to do the same thing online. So that is a matter of training, how to teach an online class. Secondly, you need a good online platform. For example, in the US, I have used Blackboard and WebCT and Canvas, 3 platforms that I have used. And then there is Moodle. What India would be very well served is India certainly has the lot of skilled people in the tech area. I think the government should encourage the development of several online teaching platforms that are developed for the Indian market. It is huge. It will be viable. It should have all the capabilities. For example, in online education, you have the ability to, for example, provide the content in all Indian languages, and you click a button and hear that explanation in your own mother tongue. That kind of ability can be built into an online platform. But for something like that to work, you need the very basic thing, very powerful and uniformly available state-of-the-art internet signal all over India. That can only be done by the government of India, probably by making it part of the defense budget or something like that. So anywhere, city or village, urban area, rural area, Delhi, Mumbai, whatever, wherever somebody is, you can get on the internet for a very highly reliable, highly capable internet experience. Secondly, you need to have a good indigenously developed online teaching platforms that are capable of handling text and video and multi-language capability. That is something that has to be built. And then there has to be a series of training programs that teach teachers how to take advantage of the internet to develop lessons, content in their areas, giving examples and things like that. That's how I learned. So I think anybody can do it. Now, it is also true that not everything can be taught entirely online. Online teaching is not meant for every subject, but online education can definitely serve as a secondary resource for strengthening whatever the students are learning in terms of exercises, tutorials, and things like that. If you are trying to learn sculpture, for example, from an experienced sculptor, I suppose something like that has to be done face-to-face. In fact, those types of programs at my university are suffering right now because you cannot carry on those things just online. You have to have your in-person meeting. Music is another example, but even there they have come up with some innovations that allow the students to practice and then have their practice lessons online and things like that. So there will be limited areas where face-to-face with the teacher is the only way. And we can provide the resources for that. But wherever it is possible, The internet can be an enabler, allowing students to receive a high quality education. And that is also one way of tackling the enormous amount of resources required to educate, I don't know, maybe 500 million young people. I mean, that kind of resource is just mind-boggling. So the internet can be one way of tackling that. Yeah, I will pass the mic to Sanjay.
Okay, let me. When you talk about operational issues, one of the things that we are always concerned about in the US, and I think India should also be concerned about, is assessment. Assessment is a big part of university education in the US. Measuring outcomes. We call it, there's also something called closing the loop. Once you find weaknesses and problems, how do you fix them? And so one community engagement, I've been attending several conferences for the last decade. In the area of assessment, it's still weak. So what are some areas that probably could benefit or could improve? Assessing how much students are learning. I myself have developed a scale, I call it the BASE scale. BASE is BACE, Benefits of Academic Community Engagement Scale. And this scale is used at our university, where at the end of every semester, we ask students what skills they learned by taking the community engagement course. I think there has to be assessment done with the community partners. Okay, how much have they benefited from this community engagement exercise? Then there has to be some assessment done at the faculty level. How much time has it taken? What has the outcome been? One of the things that I always preach to my faculty and to my colleagues is that if you're doing a community engagement partner, as a community engagement pedagogy in the class, see if you can get some publications out of that. Because we are judged more on how much we write than how much time we spend teaching. And so the point is, assessment is going to be, it's still an area that needs some additional work. And I think over time, we are all trying to, I've been noticing that as I've been going to these conferences, people are talking about it, people are developing tools, but they have still lacked the rigor, they still lack the validity and reliability you need to be universally accepted all over the country. So that's where I think there's still some work to be done in this area, and there's opportunity probably for research in this area.
Next question, and this is something this came out of my reading of the new education policy. In that, there's a narrative that says a national mission for mentoring will be established. So at this point, for a while, we have been giving a lot of solutions that are aimed at the demand side, the consumption side. But who will do this? And I think that is a resource crunch that everybody will hit, because one of the things when you design a system is you also have to grow the resources and the production in line with the demand for the consumption. And so I think this idea that you'll have a national mission for mentoring, very wonderful thing. And in that space, and this is again also something I'm going to Professor, both of my colleagues to talk, but Dr. Sharma to talk, because he's building on the Pravasya Bharat. You know that, and this is true. When I came to the US in 2002, and that trend continues even today. When I was a PhD student at UT Arlington, a bulk of our classes, 95% you could run them in Hindi. That was the amount of Indian students who would come to US to study. And so Indians and Chinese have been the largest set of students who come. And from then, they also go on to become PhDs and then professors. And now, I told you last week, I was talking about now they're becoming deans. I mean, sometimes deans back to back in Harvard, I was telling you about the example, but just not Harvard, other schools. So in the Indian academics have all come of age. And a lot of them have reached a stage where they're into even a giving mode. How can you tap this wonderful army of Indian retired or not retired, but senior Indian academics in the US for this national mission for education? That is something that I think the ministry and this think tank ICSI can take a look at, because whenever we meet, and I was telling you about our group, we are part of the Collegiate Marketing Educators, FBD. We have a whole, we call this the Indian Mafia. And one things we do is the conference runs from Wednesday to Friday, and Thursday night is our Indian groups. And we go and we take a whole restaurant over. I mean, about 60 tables are all folks from India. And, most of the time it's language, it's Hindi, but maybe a little Tamil. And it's the restaurant makes money, but the main idea is, we all ideate, how can we give back? How do we give back? And a lot of things is, can we give back through research? Can we give back through teaching, service? So there's this passion for the NRIs to give back. And how can that be tapped is a question I want Dr. Sharma to talk about later. But in that sense, I also wanted to, because that's important, because when you're talking of this path-breaking innovation, as I told you, you need everybody to pitch in. So this is like, building the Ram Setu, everybody has to pitch in. So when you're doing the Setu, Gyan Setu, who can build it? And I think how can the US education professors of Indian origin be part of it? So that's a conversation we should have. Just wanted to take that. Now, coming back to the questions, when it comes to online education, Professor Ganesh, what are the other things that you think how can it transform the landscape? If you want to add some more points. And when it comes to community engagement, Professor Mehta, I cannot help but not quote Mahatma Gandhi when he talks about, I'll give you a talisman. If you're in doubt, or if yourself becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weak man whom you might have seen. Ask if yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him. I think that is very compelling in the context of community engagement, because we are learning. And I did all my education through state schools, even in the US, and I teach in a state school. We are literally studying on and get paid from taxpayers' money. So there is also a moral imperative that we give back. And this community engagement offers a wonderful tool. But again, I like the way you distinguished it, because see, on one hand, you go and do one Mahotsav, you plant a tree, that's an NSS project. But if you can, if you're a student of agriculture or forestry, and you tell, hey, where should you plant what tree? That's community engagement. So I think there is a skill addition, a value add because of your skill that you do through community engagement. So it's NSS, but it's NSS with some skill that you add. So that's one clarification I want to make. So over to you, Professor Ganesh, if you want to share more anecdotes, or if you want to share about how did you find your experience in the US when you first came from India? And what were the things you thought how that could be needed to be changed in Indian education? Can you talk a little bit about that? And Professor Sanjay Mehta, I want you to tap on your rich experience in the US.
Well, this whole system of credit-based education was new to me, so that I can make some plans ahead of the next semester, what classes I'm going to take, what times I'm going to take those classes, which professors. I found plenty of choices, which I had not experienced at all previously in growing up in India. So that was dramatically different. And of course, at least at that time, the technology that was available to me in the US was quite superior to what I had experienced in India. I don't think that is any longer true, at least if you live in the major cities and are studying in well-known institutions. I think Indian students also are getting access to very good resources. Teaching a class for the first time, having never taught in India, and overcoming, I was not an English medium student in India. I studied in the Tamil medium through 10th standard. And then in 11th, I had to switch to English medium, sink or swim basis. And in IIT, language skills were not that important. So that did not pose any problems. IIMs, I had significant adjustment to do because every day I had to read, I don't know, maybe sometimes even 200 pages in English, which I had never done in my life before. All these very lengthy Harvard cases. But even there, other than a few class presentations, I had not done much speaking. So adjusting to teaching in class was a major challenge initially. So that is why it is a matter of great satisfaction to me that I was able to make that adjustment and now to be recognized as one of the, my university only has 5% of its faculty designated as distinguished teaching professors. So it was a challenge making all those adjustments. At the same time, I found the environment to be a very liberating type of environment. One of the best things about American higher education is, and I see this in the new education policy, or the seeds of that. On the first day of class, I am given my list of students. It used to be a printed list when I first started here. It is now all electronic. So I know how many students are taking my class. I know their identities. On the last day of class or the last day of the semester, I'm expected to turn in my grades. In between those two, whatever happens is entirely my business. When I teach a class, it is my class, my syllabus, whether I use the textbook or no textbook, what kind of exams and assignments, how I grade my students, everything, whether I teach the class entirely face-to-face throughout the semester, or whether I have a blended class where some of the sessions are online. Now this semester, everything online. Everything was my choice, that kind of freedom. In fact, I had a colleague who left the US and went to a foreign country, not India, some other country, very prosperous country. And they, with the intention of settling down there, they couldn't stand more than 2 years and they returned to the US because their syllabus, exams, everything had to be approved by some professor, group of professors in a third country. And they couldn't stand that after experiencing teaching in the United States for 20 years. And they simply returned. They abandoned their plans to settle down in that country and returned to the, that kind of freedom. So now this has some negative aspects also, that some people might do a mediocre job. So you need to have some kind of assessment of how effective those teachers are in their classrooms, some form of assessment, student assessment, colleague assessment, all those things come to mind. Their syllabuses need to be examined, so on and so forth for quality. But this freedom is very liberating. And I see the seeds of that in the national new education policy, where professors will have a lot more freedom to teach within the overall parameters their classes using their methods.
Yeah, just, Professor Ganesh, thank you so much. And I'm going to ask Professor Sharma for the next question. But meanwhile, I just wanted one comment. A lot of us think, that maybe, what's good about India or bad about India, but actually, there are, when Professor Mehta was talking about community engagement, one of the things that was fascinatingly happening in IIM Ahmedabad was there was a class or a small business clinic run by one of the legends in Indian marketing, Professor Ora. Professor Ganesh knows him, Professor Mehta knows him. I'm like an Ekalavya Shishya, because I haven't even read about him. I've never took a class, but they're all people who are path breakers. So we've had those wonderful educators, and Professor Subhash Mehta, Sanjay's dad, we have had such pioneers. So there are some great, what we call Mahan Hastiya, who have done community engagement, who have done these kind of pedagogies in India. So it's not entirely new. So I wanted Sanjay to also add that in his narrative. And after that, Professor Sharma will ask some questions.
give one comment on Dr. Ganesh. Is one of the things that I noticed when I came to this country is the amount I learned, the makeup of a typical class. I think for India to really be the forefront of education, I think one of the things they have to do is open up globally. So when I came to this country, even in a typical class, I would have people, international students from at least 20 different countries. The richness of education and their perspectives. I'll give you an example. When I was in India, I understood the Palestinian-Israeli conflict at a very superficial level. But when I came to this country, I had 3 or 4 Palestinian friends who were exiled in Jordan and Lebanon, and then I had a couple of Israeli friends. Understanding their discussions and their perspectives gave me a very different viewpoint and something that I could never get from textbooks. I think for India to become go to the next level, I think it's important for them to develop a system whereby students from all over the world come to India for education. And that not only benefits them, but I think that is a huge benefit to the students who may never get an opportunity to come abroad and be in that learning environment. Similarly, professors. I know there are a couple of schools like IBS, ISB, and so on and so forth that get a lot of foreign teachers. But I remember when my father was working at IM, when IM first started, they were getting professors from all over the world teaching IM students. This is way back in the 60s. I think that has huge advantage to students. And so India has had some students come from places like Nigeria and a couple of those countries, but you don't find many, Britishers, Europeans, and other European countries, North American students coming to India for education. That, I think, having a classroom with 50% foreigners, like we have many times here in our classes, is a huge advantage to both India as well as the foreign students. So I wanted to add that if there's any way the education ministry or policy could work with the immigration/government to encourage that kind of work activity of where students come in, I think that's huge.
Professor Sharma, please ask some question.
Tejendra ji, kindly take on. You have to unmute your mic, Tejendra ji.
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. It's been a great pleasure listening to the wonderful words of renowned professors. Actually, sir, whenever Vivek and I talk, we talk for at least an hour and a half. And frankly, I have heard all your names. And for me, you don't sound anybody who's unfamiliar. I've already had a chance of talking to Professor Sanjay Mehta ji also. And we had a discussion regarding community learning. Sir, the point is, you see, how can we integrate it within our structured systems? Because it's fine, we can train the teachers. Teachers will be motivated also because it sounds good. And you see, it offers lots of advantages and immediate practical payback to the society is also likely when, say, the students have this kind of a perspective and they join their professions at a later stage. But then the point is, who will bell the cat? How do we design exact systems implementation part? So with your vast experience, sir, how we can do that? This was my first question to Professor Sanjay Mehta ji.
May I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
At the university level, the syllabus and things like that should indicate that this kind of activity is required or acceptable, so on and so forth. And then at the individual college level, it needs to be some kind of monitoring needs to be there so that students do something meaningful and are not getting credit for doing nothing. Okay, so I would think something along those lines. Community engagement is an expectation, giving some examples of what could be done in different areas, different disciplines. The professors who are experts in different areas can come up with some ideas of how community engagement can be implemented in their discipline. That needs to become part of the syllabus. And then implementing the syllabus locally is the responsibility of the individual colleges. That was my comment. I'll pass along to Sanjay.
What we did at our institution is we asked the president to include community engagement in the mission statement. And it became also our motto. And so it starts, I think, at the top, although the effort was more bottom up. The faculty wanted to do this, but we realized that for more people to do it, more faculty to do, because we have about 1,000 faculty. And initially they were a group of about 5 of us who wanted to push this. We thought it would be impossible to do it. So we went straight to the top and said, okay, Mr. President, can you include community engagement into the mission statement? And so once that was done, we were able to start running workshops and educating people about community engagement. And then we ran seminars of different kinds, so we ran seminars, we brought community partners who had worked with into these seminars and said, let them talk to your faculty. Not, I'm just a colleague, but what if a community partner came and talked about the benefits of having students work with them? So basically, you have to institutionalize it. It's a lot more effort. It's not very simple. Then we had to build a reward structure. So earlier we had 3 awards: outstanding teacher, outstanding researcher, outstanding service provider to the university. We created the 4th award, outstanding community, what we call service learning professor. And so that came with a monetary benefit. We gave a cash prize. We created a reward structure, meaning if you would document how many hours extra you spent a year in community engagement as a faculty, supervising your students, there would be some benefit at the end of the year that would help you in promotion and tenure. So you have to create a structure in place in order to institutionalize it. Now, you may have individual faculty members who buy into this idea and do it on their own, like I did, like Dr. Ganesh did. I mean, we were doing it in the 90s and 80s. But to make it a university-wide endeavor, it requires a lot more work, honestly. And that's what I'm proposing. You will find faculty all over the country doing it on an individual level. But that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, creating a syllabus, creating a structure, creating assessment tools, creating, becoming a part of becoming part of the university culture. And that, I think, the big thing is, which is what I'm saying.
Indeed, it entails a systems redesign, and the thinking has to come not only from bottom to top or top to bottom. Rather, it's to be all say inclusive kind of a approach. Only then we may have people implementing this newer pedagogy itself. So regarding the online education, I would like to apprise you of the status of what is the state of affairs with us right now. You see, all of a sudden we had the lockdown announced, and as a result of the lockdown, we were having our normal classroom teaching, and all of a sudden we were told to stay home. And we found, oh my God, semester is coming to an end. Now, how do we cover rest of our syllabus? So online came as just like, you see the first stage. And and unprepared teachers and unprepared students, the first reaction of online was make WhatsApp groups and send them the study material. Okay, this was the first thing. Second thing was, I mean, you see a few of the innovative teachers, who had experience with say online platforms like Zoom and say Google Classroom, they started this synchronous interactions as well through these online modes. And third set of teachers, you see, since time left out was very less, Moodle and all that, it was not very easy to make. So third set of teachers, I mean, they used a blended kind of a thing, sir. And this was how it went about. And finally, how we took online exams and all that, that's all a part of history now. The point is, I mean, in the coming semester, or how are we, say, going ahead? Again, till now, it has been a mixture of synchronous versus asynchronous teaching. Teachers are using these online platforms, also recording their videos and sharing to the students who do not have the internet access to be with the class when the class was actually held. So this way, we try to overcome this handicap of, matching internet speeds at all times. Regarding internet availability you see, it is an issue, but still it's an issue which is well within control, thanks to Geo, thanks to the competitive scenario in the Indian telecom industry. Now data is quite available. 3 GB per day is, I think it's quite enough for a class. And especially when I asked the students, they said, sir, it doesn't take more than 50 MBs to attend a class for the whole day. So data is not much of an issue, but speed of data sometimes becomes an issue. So this was at the classroom level. Regarding the systems level, government had been thinking of online teaching from quite some time. And they had started e-Pathshala initiative. Then they had also started the Swayam initiative of the UGC. In this, they had a mix of, say, 4 components. Firstly, it was the textual part, then it was a lecture part. Then after that, there was an evaluation, and fourth was the reference part. So this way, if a student enrolled, if they didn't want any certification, it was free. But if they wanted a certification, then it was offered as a MOOCs course to the students. It was supposed to be a part of the choice-based credit system, which we are implementing now. So maybe you see, next 2 academic sessions, we are going to see a blend now. Sorry, we are going to see a blend wherein there will be MOOCs and Moodles who will be offered by professors of universities. And if the students don't find them, their teachers in their own institutions, they may do those courses there. There are some implementational issues, but I think so we'll overcome over a period of time. So this way, systems redesign is happening. Things are moving. And frankly, we started from zero, absolute zero. Absolute no online teaching, but the stage at which we have say come within this small time, I am hopeful, sir, frankly. And India is not only IITs and IIMs and ISB. India is much beyond that. The mainstream universities, I call mainstreams to the institutions like mine, because we cater to the vast majority. We reach out to the bottom. We are not the ones who is skimming at the top levels. We have got a huge diversity. So indeed, online education is coming. But sir, then your experience is really very, very valuable, because it gives us a perspective where we should be moving. Moodles, almost every teacher has done the training now, thanks to this online webinars and all that. Almost every teacher in India is aware of what is Moodle, how to make a video, how to prepare an online class, how to plan a lecture, how to divide it. Even, sir, frankly, online has become what I see is a blended teaching coming in the days to come. And regarding freedom to the academics, at least in the universities, we enjoy quite a bit of academic freedom. In colleges also, as far as classroom interaction is concerned, teachers have the freedom as long as the syllabus is intact and the results are coming. So that way, this part is also positive and supportive for our education system. But the limitation is the eroding autonomy which we are facing nowadays, with too much of the interference coming from other stakeholders. So I think so this is something that may change the system. And sir, regarding the globalization of the students, yes, it is a initiative which depends upon individuals. It is an institutional initiative. I was an advisor international students in my university, and at that time we had only 2 students. But when I left it, we had 60 students from 12 different countries, and the number is increasing. We discouraged the students from the countries, some countries, otherwise we would have had at least more than 2,000 of them. So you see, it's basically the national education policy has given us a resilience wherein we find that there is a path which we can tread upon. There is a path which we can tread upon. And sir, your experience, Vivek talked about giving back, your intention to give back. Vivek, if you are listening to me, I think so the best model of how an American professor can give back to Indian system is probably the Vivek and Tejinder model. You see, sir, I met Vivek and Professor Madhu Vishwanathan at a conference in 2007. And since then, the best thing was that we have had a communication at least every week. And the result was things went on slow, but the result was, you see, both of us had about 7, 8 joint papers. We had, say, common visits to our institutions. We have had, say, a lot of, student interaction. I taught in his class, he taught to my class. So this way, it was a very symbiotic kind of a relationship which we built. And both of us, we started as assistant professors or lecturers, and both of us become professors in this whole process also. So we gained, our students gained, our institutions gained. I think so this sort of tier 2, kind of a interaction must come in the days to come from the say Indian diaspora. So these were the few questions. I mean, you see, it was not question, it was more like, say, giving my perspective or adding upon to what you have said. But your words and your association is really very, very valuable for we Indians sitting here. And definitely, we look forward to inspiration, we look forward to ideas, and we look forward to working jointly with the individuals as well as institutions. And for this purpose, the point is, I mean, you see the efforts of Dr. Gulshan Sharma ji is that he's trying to institutionalize the things now. When you bring people together at a platform, at least we interact, and then we think of developing a roadmap, I mean, how it can be done. Maybe somebody in the regulator is also listening to all this, and they might also get a cue. But at least, I mean, see, some people amongst us may develop such thought process and may start acting upon it. So indeed, Vivek, you gave me the mandate to ask questions, but frankly, I was more like, I mean, see, interacting and discussing, gaining from listening. So it's been a really very, very wonderful, interaction with you, sir, today.
Okay. Well, with just one concluding comment, before after this, I'm going to request Professor Gulshan Sharma ji to step in. He has been unusually, silent right now, but I think he's going to come back with some wonderful follow-up concluding questions. But just your comment, Sharma ji, you're from Kurukshetra, and Kurukshetra, both question and answer both happened. So I think you did both. You also have posed some questions, but you also gave some wonderful answers. So with that, I request Professor Dr. Gulshan Sharma ji, Major Saab as I call him all the time, to come back and kind of ask some follow-up questions to our panelists.
First of all, thank you very much for the wonderful input from all of you. And I'm grateful to Ministry of Education officials, those who have joined this particular program. I'm personally grateful to all of them. People have joined us from different cities, different countries, different places, and some of the policymakers, those who have joined us. I'm so grateful to all of them, and I wanted that we should get the valuable inputs today. Now, just before finally I pass on the baton to propose vote of thanks to Professor Tejinder, the founder president of Haryana Commerce and Management Association, because today is Haryana Day also. I would make a small request to both the professors. There has to be a concrete takeaway from today's session and today's program. And there I would like to request both of you, if you could give me 3 points each, which I can take away, and that should get into. My challenges are following. Number one, if there are 138 million people, and when I'm talking about a sizable educators, teachers, youth are to be given skills and teachers have to be given the new pedagogy as far as the new learning mode, new teaching mode. Now, I won't call it a teaching mode. It's no more teaching because the new education policy has cleared it that education in future is not going to be teaching centric. That era is over now. Now it's a learning centric. And the youth gets a priority, children gets priority, students get priority. So my first question to Professor Gopalaji, and similar way I'll tell Professor Mehta also, then both of you can give your suggestions. I will just note it down because ministry officials are also watching this particular program. And I want to take it in a proper way because our chamber since 1994 is associated with the non-resident Indians world over in about 152 countries, wherever the people are. So our aim is that to develop an ecosystem now world over, all the educators who can contribute for implementation of the new education policy or National Education Policy 2020 of India. Now, Professor Saab, first of all, my salutations to you, Gopalaji, that I am for in because the statistics which we have taken, 71.3% children are very happy with the digital way of education than to be going theoretical, what was happening earlier. That is the input which is pouring in. But this 70% is those people, those have got access to digital privilege, and those are in the metros, and those have got the gadgets and apparatus and equipment. I'm not talking about those children who are deprived of the connectivity or who are deprived of the basic apparatus or equipment or whatever you want to call. So that's first thing. Secondly, my challenge is the teachers are to be empowered. And if I just give you roughly statistics, 3 lakh teachers are required and 19 lakh teachers are getting trained at present in India. That is through the B.Ed education. The B.Ed and M.Ed education which is going on in India at present in different institutions, the requirement of Indian education ecosystem is to get 3 lakh new teachers every year. But production is that of 19 lakh. So the quality and the quantity, and particularly coming your way, how it should be imparted digital way. Coming to Professor Mehta, sir. My question to you would be, when I'm talking about community engagement, very specifically, I would like to take away this morning from your side and this evening from India, what should be done for teacher empowerment? It is not the students which basically I'm worried about. I'm worried about teachers. At this point of time, teachers have to be equipped. Teachers have to be given, because children every day, number one, the amount of time which they are devoting on the gadgets, on the equipments or technology, they are becoming more tech-savvy. Education system is going to have a new pedagogy. So in community, how do I go by where the teacher empowerment? My question is very, very specific. I'm not talking about students at this stage. My takeaway and the final question is how the teachers have to be taken as far as the online part is concerned and community is concerned. This is my request to both the professors. Sir, mic is mute, sir. Mic is mute.
You wanted 3 takeaways, right?
Yeah, I want 3 recommendations, sir, from your side, which I can put in a perspective to the government, that these are the 3 recommendations from my side for teacher empowerment in India through online education?
The first recommendation would be, I have already said this,
India
basic,
should develop its own platform
no,
for
no, basic
digital.
free access to state-of-the-art Wi-Fi connection all over the country that is equally strong in any place, remote places, urban areas, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Secondly, a digital platform that has all the capabilities, delivering lessons, having conferences, making available assessments, grading, so on and so forth, and which also incorporates multiple language capabilities, so that at the press of a button, a student can hear an explanation for, regardless of subject matter, in their own language if they want to. That will empower a lot of students. Okay. And thirdly, a structured program for training teachers at the school level, at the college level, on how to teach online, how to develop content, and how to teach online. In fact, content development can be done by institutions like the, what is it called, NCERT, the people who develop NCERT. They can develop content for online education. They can develop modules so that the teacher.
NCERT is for the school education and NIPA is for the higher education.
Yeah, they can develop, they can employ the best professors, carefully select best teachers and professors, develop content modules, and then the focus of the training program would be to teach lots of teachers how to implement these effectively using tested, proven methods. That will unleash a revolution in education. And the online education is not simply delivering entire courses. It can also be very effective for tutorials in difficult subject matter, physics, chemistry, mathematics, so on and so forth. I'm sure you're all familiar with Khan's Academy. Something like that can be developed in an Indian context by Indian teachers for Indian students using Indian contexts, can easily be done. So that is something that would be very effective. And I also mentioned previously, it would be simply impossible to find the money to put in physical universities, 1,500 of them. And you can leverage the abilities of technology to reduce that outlay.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Very kind of you. Professor Mehta, sir.
Yes. Let me give a couple of my personal observations first. Let me start with that. At least in the US, so this may not be true in India, I think. In the US, what we see many a times is people who pursue education as a profession, that tends not to be their first choice many a times. Historically, the College of Education and most universities have not necessarily attracted the best and the brightest. I wish that teaching as a profession has a higher statute in the US. Now in India, that's probably already true. And so, so it starts with that fundamental thing that education itself should be a sought out profession. When I talk to my business students, I said, after you get your business degree, because schools do offer business classes, how many of you want to go into teaching at high school or grade school level? And literally over the last 10 years, I've asked this question, not a single student. They all want to go to corporations, they want to go to businesses, they want to be entrepreneurs. They don't want to be teachers. And part of the reason is teaching in this country, at least, is not a highly paid profession. And so one of the things that I think India needs to do is make teaching a more attractive profession, so it attracts the best of the brightest.
Point well taken. Point
Best
well taken.
employers go into engineering and medicine.
Yeah, point well taken. Because the reason being, let's take it that two students are passing out after doing their post-graduation in economics, and they go for their internship. They would like to go to corporate. They would not like to go to a college or to a university, because there they are getting a package of 10 lakh of rupees per year. Here they are getting 15,000 rupees or 20,000 rupees. Who would like to get into teaching profession?
Exactly.
No good person would like to get into. So it has to become lucrative. Economics play a very important role. I'm totally with you.
A lot of us who got into this profession never came into this profession for the money. We came for the passion. We came to make a difference. One of the things that I enjoy the most is after 5-10 years, a student writes me an email telling me that I changed their life. They're grateful that they took my class. So those things are what we came to. Now, I wish there were a lot more people like that who make that decision. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I think in education, there tends to be a gravitation towards administration wanting to control professors, wanting to tell them what they can and cannot do. I think we have to encourage creativity in classrooms. I think we have to encourage professors to think outside the box. Let them figure out what is best for their students. Because what I also find is every semester, every year I teach, my mix of students is different. So I have to make some adjustments. And some students are very visual learners. Some students are very experiential learners. Some students are rote memorizers, So I think we need to give faculty greater autonomy. When I came to this country, it was very common for us to teach from the same, if there were 15 sections of a course, we all taught from the same textbook. Now some of that has gone away. We are told to teach any way we want. But at the same time, it cannot be the wild, wild west, where professors are doing anything they want.
In the new education policy, Professor Sir, there is a provision, there is a proper provision that you need not to follow a particular pattern to impart knowledge or wisdom or content. You can be innovative, you can be creative. There is a provision in the policy. There is a provision.
That is very important.
Yeah. So
extremely important.
Point is well taken. And over there, once again, the rotation comes that professors and teachers, those are coming, they got to be more creative and they got to think out of the box. So that point is well taken. Point is well taken. Third point, sir.
Third point, I would say that I think no one pedagogy is the best, in my opinion.
Yes.
I think we can mix and match pedagogies.
Okay.
In an environment. So, for example, I may do case study and community engagement in my class and lecturing in my class.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there is something called a superior pedagogy. And I think that's where we have to give faculty the ability to, so that's what I do. I do multiple pedagogies. I sometimes let the students also lecture.
My humble request to you, because I heard so much from Professor Vivek about the community part from you, I just want to get one practical solution from you. Like I have understood online from Professor Gopala, I'm totally clear about it. Over here, my population, my people, my divide, my rural area, my cities, my block level, my panchayat, my interiors, my far-flung areas, and even if the digital is going to take some time to reach out over there, please help me out how a community engagement in the last village of Arunachal Pradesh, which is near China border, there also the children should be in a position to get the same knowledge and same contents and same facility through a community approach. What do I do?
I think you have to start with some training programs that Dr. Ganesh was talking about, the online training. I think community engagement also requires some training. It's not, because it's not something that we were all grown up with. It's not something we saw in our educational system. So it's a relatively newer pedagogy. So I think training programs where we can teach educators how to do community engagement, how to get kids involved in their community, how to seek out community partners, how community partners can be co-educators. That's very important. You know, in my community partners, you are as much as an educator as I am. The only difference is you are an educator outside the class, I'm an educator inside the class. Reflecting on the experience is very important. At the end of every semester, I ask every student to give me 2 or 3 sentences about reflection of their experiences. Great. And that's what I'm telling you. They start questioning, why are there so many poor people in the richest country in the world? I said, that's exactly my question. Because when I make them work with nonprofits, they say, why are so many women abused in this? That's exactly my question to you. You tell me the answer.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Point well. One's experiences are very, very important.
Point well taken. Because see, coming from the armed forces background and got into the education, and thereafter having drafted India's first MBA tourism syllabi and the curriculum way back in 1988 and having introduced in the Indian universities, today when I look back, northeast part of India, those 8 beautiful states of India, their children deserve equal kind of an opportunities which others are getting. They also deserve. And somewhere there are some hiccups and difficulties and problems. Anyway, all my participants, those are watching this particular program, the question goes to you. There are going to be 3 cash prizes. There are going to be 3 winners, and you got to just post it. You can, by the time we have a concluding round, all of you can post it. What can be the contribution of the non-resident Indians or Indian diaspora in the new education policy and in the Indian education system empowerment? Kindly post your whatever your suggestion, your recommendation, your views. I would request each one of you kindly post it, and the 3 best answers, we will give a cash prize from our chamber, because I want 3 lucky winners to be this evening. And finally, I have not asked Professor Vivek, but can I make a humble request to both my distinguished guests this evening? Is it possible once in a month, if Professor Gopalaji, once in a month, if Professor Gopalaji and Professor Sanjayji, if you can give 1 hour for India, how basically to empower Indian teachers, only for 1 hour in 1 month. Can you just be kind enough to give it maybe for few months to start the process? If you can be kind enough, because my aim is to get finally 100 people from the world over and finally put across the idea to the Honorable Prime Minister of India and to the Education Minister of India. Let's get 100 people from world over, the best brains who can empower the new education system or the new education policy 2020 of India. And they should protect not only their salary, what they're getting abroad. They can be brought on a contractual basis initially. They bring with them lots of experience. They bring with them lots of networking, and they can empower the Indian education system the best possible way. If once in a month, if you can just devote 1 hour, I would be personally grateful from the chamber. This is my humble request to you, if it's possible. Otherwise, I would say we will move on. That is the way we will take on, because all of us, वो बोलते हैं कि मैं अकेला ही चला था जानबे मंजिल, लोग आते गए और कारवां बनता गया. When I started the first 1994 Parvasi Divas, it was only 4,000 plus people. Today, there are 12 lakh people as a part of networking of the whole global community. So with these words, I just thought, and Vivekji, final words will come from Tejenderji to propose vote of thanks, and I request you to kindly, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, आपने ये कारवा की बात किया, so you just talked about it. There is actually, since this you kind of covered the Punjabi and the Hindi side of the equation, I cannot resist but quote something from Tamil. And what better when you talk of Tamil, people quote Tirukural and all, but something that resonates well in Tamil Nadu is Rajnikant. And Rajnikant says, Kanna, this is in the movie Shivaji. He says this is a either Tana send the kutta, illa Anba send the kutta. This is a crowd that gathered not with any inducements, not with biryani, not with inducements like that, but it came out of love. So these are wonderful people, Professor Mehta, Professor Gigi, they've all, they've literally been like a friend, philosopher, guide to me. So don't worry. I mean, I'm sure we will be engaged, and there are specific action items to be engaged with India in terms of doing research and to contribute. So I think that is something that will be forthcoming, and we will talk offline how to keep that engagement going. Because these are people, in fact, the one thing I just want to add on to what Sanjay said, for the kind of qualifications that Professor Gopala Ganesh had, IIT, IIM, then a PhD, and some of us, we could have gone and done much more in terms of financial success, but that's not what keeps us going. What keeps us going is some passion. And most of us wake up and talk at 11:30. You're a witness to that. I talk to you at 1 a.m. in the morning. We are passionate about changing lives. That is the passion. So this is not a problem. When you say, "Aap 1 घंटे दोगे, हम 1000 घंटे देंगे," वो problem नहीं है. But the thing is, this is all a contribution to developing India. And if India rises, the world will rise. That's what Swami Vivekananda said. So with that, I will give the floor to my good friend Tejinderji, unless Sanjay or Gopalji wants to make a final comment. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Thank you very much, Professor Sanjay Mehta ji and Professor Gopala Ganesh ji. I would request Professor Tejinder to kindly propose formal vote of thanks for today's program.
Most distinguished, respected panel of the day, Professor Gopala Ganesh ji, Professor Sanjay Mehta, my friend Professor Vivek, and Dr. Gulshan Sharma ji. It's indeed some of the webinars are mind changers, and today's webinar I would classify it in that category. We are extremely honored to have you amongst us today. And sir, your words of wisdom, your perspective, your insights, your thoughts are really very inspirational. I won't say motivational, I would say inspirational, because it inspires us to instill excellence into our systems. And sir, your will and your commitment to pay back to the nation from where you have had your roots is really very commendable. And we are blessed to have elders, seniors, mentors like you all. I don't want to call it as a vote of thanks, as we can't thank you, sir. I want this to be a process wherein we all interact and we all pay back to the society. Gulshan ji has brought us together, Vivek has brought us together, and you all have come together, sir. And we basically want to build better India. We want to build a better world, a world which is peaceful, which is harmonious. And it is the thought process of distinguished people, thought leaders like you, who have shown to the world that they do not just talk, they have actually done it, they have implemented it. And if they could do it, we can also do it within our system. Sir, we are extremely thankful to you from the core of our hearts, on behalf of Haryana Commerce and Management Association, on behalf of ICSI, on behalf of the fraternity of academicians from India, and on my own behalf, I propose my hearty vote of thanks to you, sir. I'm very thankful to you for sparing. Gulshan ji was requesting 1 hour. You have spared almost 3 hours for us today, sir. We are humbled. We are thankful to you, sir, and we look forward to your inspiration in the days. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to both the professors, I would like to make a mention that initially I took a little longer today because I got the directions from the Ministry of Education. Some people were joining us and they wanted to know what exactly is this program and what are we doing over here. That's why unconventionally I took little extra time to introduce the subject initially. Please, Professor Gopalaji.
When Sanjay was talking, I thought of another thing. This has nothing to do with online education. In the US, you cannot teach classes 1 through 12 unless you have an education degree, which is not applicable at the college level. So this has, in many instances, it has had a very negative influence in the sense that somebody teaches mathematics, they have only had 6 to 9 hours of mathematics at the college level, but they have an education degree. And such a person cannot motivate the students to learn mathematics. So one simple rule of thumb that India would benefit from, the US would benefit from, but here there's a very big educational lobby that will probably not let it happen. For India, a simple rule of thumb should be, if you want to teach 1 through 12, the first 6 classes up to 6th standard, if you want to teach mathematics, you have to have a bachelor's degree in mathematics. If you want to teach classes 7 through 10, you have to have a master's degree in mathematics. If you want to teach classes 11 and 12, you have to have a PhD in mathematics. No exemptions will be given. Same thing is true for chemistry. Same thing is true for physics. Same thing is true for computer science. Same thing is true for languages. Wherever you specify that you have to teach a subject matter, you have to have bachelor's degree up to the 6th class, master's degree probably up to the 10th class, and a PhD for the 11th and 12th. So that will ensure that the pipeline gets filled with the right kind of people, and students will get exposure to the subject matter from somebody who knows their stuff. Such a person can be trained to deliver their content online and things like that, because they are already strong in their respective content areas. So I wanted to make that point. I don't know whether that is true. Some of that might be happening, but that is something that Ministry of Education could be looking into.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Saab. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being with us. So green morning, green afternoon, and green evening, whatever time zone, country, continent, wherever you are, our deep gratitudes and thanks to everybody. And very special thanks to Professor Vivek, Professor Tejinder, to bring these distinguished guests this evening and to be with us. So wish you all a great day ahead in America, and good night to everybody in India, and dreaming in Australia and Fiji and New Zealand. They are already in the middle of the night. And of course, Europeans, I would request you, please go for your dinner now. Your dinner time is getting nearer. All the best.